is a paid commercial program. The broadcast of this program is not an endorsement of the products or services described or discussed by this radio station, iHeartMedia, the host, or any other advertisers of the station, and is aired for informational purposes.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jet Radio 1400. I am Allan Carpenter. First of all, before we start this broadcast, I want to apologize for my voice. I am fighting a bug right now, so I probably don't sound as good as I should. Somebody out there is saying, you never sound that good, but I sound even worse right now. I want to welcome to the studio David Basnak. David is the Executive Director and President of EmergiCare, and we've got a lot to talk about with EmergiCare, David. First of all, good morning. Thank you for coming down.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Alan.
Thank you for putting up with my Crypt Keeper voice this morning. Trust me, I usually sound a little more professional than this, so it's good to have you here. Now, we're going to talk about, you've probably read about it in the news, the EMS crisis, and I don't think most of us, maybe hardly any of us, understand exactly how the crisis works, how long-standing it is, and everything that it entails. So, David, let's start off talking about EmergiCare. I was talking to you off air about this. You say EmergiCare, and people go, ambulance.
Yep.
And that's kind of the extent of what most of us know about EmergiCare. You know a whole lot more. So tell us about, the extent of what EmergiCare does.
Sure. So EmergiCare is one of the largest providers of emergency medical services in northwestern Pennsylvania. So we cover parts of 8 counties, providing ground medical transportation and pre-hospital care in the outside of the hospital environment. Most people don't understand. They believe that ambulances are just tied to rides to the hospital, but that is
right.
It couldn't be further from the truth, because we literally bring the hospital to the patient. Whether you're in a cornfield out in Waterford, or you're here at Boston Store Place up in an apartment, wherever you're at, we're bringing the care to you. And so that's what EmergiCare does. And along with, we work with a lot of other EMS agencies in Erie County and the surrounding counties. But really, the mission at the end of the day of our organization is to better the health and well-being of the people of the communities that we serve. And that's everything we do surrounds that mission.
And you know it so intimately because you started with EmergiCare, rolling on the ambulance, really.
Yes. Yeah. So my career at EmergiCare started just under 5 years ago. But I've been working in emergency medical services myself. I started when I was 17 at my local fire department in Mercer County down in Jamestown, Pennsylvania. So, my career has bloomed since then. I went to paramedic school and became a critical care paramedic in my college degree in business and stuff. So I've worked my way up through the ranks. So I've gotten to see our line of work, our field of work, from all different angles. From somebody who works on the street, which you'll still see me in uniform occasionally, out running calls. To working on towards finding solutions for this global issue that we're talking about today, the EMS crisis.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in a second, but before we do, I want people to understand when we talk about, the underfunding of services like EmergiCare. We were talking off air about this too. On that ambulance, there are so many trained people and so much specific equipment, and it all comes at a cost. None of that is cheap or free, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's what we're finding, and that's what's really contributed to the EMS crisis here is that, we've seen a decline in EMS providers for a number of years now.
Right.
Because it's very difficult to find people who want to go through the training, who want to go through the academic and the field, process to become, an EMT or a paramedic, and then not make a whole lot of money. When I started doing this, you worked 2 or 3 jobs, you worked 70 hours a week to make ends meet, and oftentimes the wages were very minimum wage, entry level. And I mean, and so as a paramedic, we have the skill to be able to take a scalpel and literally cut into somebody's neck if they can't breathe.
Right.
We can put a tube down your throat. We can put needles in your chest. If you have air collecting in your chest cavity, if you're a victim of traumatic circumstance. But, it's discouraging that the reimbursement from insurance, the funding, municipal funding is pretty much non-existent in our world right now. And that's what's really contributed to, low wages, which then just leads to recruitment retention issues, especially in this post-pandemic world.
Well, and talking to you, a little bit before the show, when we talk about the EMS crisis, I think a problem that people have, and I had as well, is they think this is a relatively recent phenomenon. Everything was okay up until a couple of years ago.
Yep.
That's far from the case. My gosh.
Yes, no, that's and I mentioned to you before the show too. 22 years ago when I was starting to go down this path, I heard the senior individuals above me talking about this. And this was a problem then, and we know it has been coming, and it's been a train coming down the tracks. A lot of people want to blame the pandemic for it, and all the pandemic did was speed it up. It's very easy to blame the pandemic. It's very easy to say that, COVID did this, COVID did that. And quite frankly, did it contribute to make it worse quicker? Absolutely. Because
it made everything worse quickly, yes.
Exactly. It's made everything worse. You go into the hospital, they're struggling with recruiting nurses, The thing is, though, is that when somebody calls 911, there's that expectation that we're there. And everybody believes that just those resources appear out of thin air. And our biggest struggle is, from a funding perspective, is that the only way that, EmergiCare, and we're the primary provider for the city of Erie, the city of Corey, and some of the surrounding municipalities out there. We provide a lot of what's called paramedic intercept services to the BLS fire departments and surrounding communities. But our primary means of funding comes from insurance reimbursement, what we call pay for service. So it's only if we respond to a scene and we transport a patient to the hospital. There's a lot that we do that we're not reimbursed for. So, for example, if we're canceled en route, if we arrive at the scene and treat and they refuse care, oftentimes those calls are not reimbursed, not covered by insurance. And we talk about this expense that is, it seems like it's common sense, but it's still, people are still confused by it. It's called the cost of readiness. So in other words, the cost of having resources sit there, be available, so that when somebody does call 911, that it's available. So anytime that we see like an increase in price in fuel, because we've seen over the last couple of years fuel's doubled in price, and you're talking about, our vehicles get between 8 to 10 miles to the gallon. Our medical supplies, have doubled, tripled, quadrupled.
That's what I was going to ask, because, when you talk about, the cost of readiness, it was one thing 20 years ago.
Yes.
But now you're required to have much more advanced equipment. You're required to have all of this 2023 level service, but you're still not getting that compensation.
Exactly. And so anytime we see those increased expenses, it eats into what we're able to do wage-wise to bolster or to recruit more people in. In the retail world, if you have to pay your workers more, you increase your prices. You see a 15-20% increase in your labor cost. Well, you just tack on, pass that right on to the customer.
Right.
In our world, even insurance reimbursement is all just a negotiated rate. A lot of people see on the bill like what the gross charge is, but that's not what we're being reimbursed.
Right.
We're being reimbursed a fraction of that. And you have to think too. Most of the people that we're taking care of are our most vulnerable population. And so our most vulnerable population are going to be on some form of, government programs such as Medicare, Medicaid. And, Medicaid right now is only covering about 50% of the cost of providing the service to the patient. So even when, we are billing Medicaid, odds are we're only probably recouping 50% of what it cost us to run that call. Medicare is a little bit better. It's right around 65% now with the latest increase, 70% of the cost covered. So that still leaves a balance of anywhere from 30 to 40, 50% of the expense of just providing service to the patient at their time of need. And that's not even getting into covering the cost of readiness. In other words, having staff on payroll, equipment on standby, ready to roll for when someone calls 911.
Yeah, and we're talking about, since, I mentioned the equipment and everything, we're also talking about a staff that is highly trained.
Yes.
To do that job takes a lot of training. And like you said, if someone's looking at doing that job and they're saying, well, I can't, really get ahead financially doing this admittedly very important job, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and those are some of the barriers that we've tried to remove. So For example, this summer, EmergiCare, and that's one thing I wanted to bring up here, is
Yes.
we're putting out our EMT Academy to where anybody can go online and apply that believes that, this is a line of work that they would like to get into. And that academy is we will essentially pay individuals who go through our employment process. We basically bring them on as part-time employees. We'll pay them an hourly wage to go through EMT class. It's about a 10-week program. And through the summer here, we'll pay them to go to class, and immediately upon completion of the class, they're put right into a full-time job. They're receive the full-time wage.
You don't get that a lot of places. I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal.
Exactly. And then our employees that start out as EMTs, even our paratransit staff, that's sort of our entry-level positions, they can come in and they can go to advanced EMT class and paramedic class, which we can all do internally. We're actually the only ALS training institute in northwestern Pennsylvania that's based in northwestern Pennsylvania. And that's really what gives us an upper hand and an edge to our industry, is that we can literally bring somebody off of the street, train them, and make them job ready, and actually have a career ladder that they can follow and, better themselves, because it's good for them, career ladder for them. It's good for us, retaining employees,
Sure.
give people, a purpose and a career ladder to better themselves and their families, so it's a win-win. But, like I said, that EMT Academy is going to be kicking off this summer. Going to our website, emergicare.org/employment. Can go on there, apply for the EMT Academy. We'll be starting interviews here in the coming weeks. And we're looking for, in Erie County, 10 solid candidates. Hopefully we can recruit and fill the right people for those seats. And also, our educational institute has a distance learning component to where we're able to blast that out to our outer divisions, so we can also train people. So part of the EMT Academy is we have seats in Warren County that we're trying to fill out there to where, it will be a joint EMS venture between both the Erie and Warren divisions to make that happen and help fill our ranks.
Yeah, it sounds like you're being very proactive about it. What else is EmergiCare doing to address this crisis? Because as we talked about off air, it's a 50-year-old crisis.
Exactly.
Ongoing crisis. This is not new.
No, as we talked about, back in the 1960s is when it was identified that A, there was no formal EMS structure in the United States, and B, even in that document, that white paper that was delivered to the president in 1966.
President Johnson, by the way, that's how far back this goes.
Yeah. We identified this problem 3 years before we put man on the moon. That ambulance services were not funded. The EMS structure wasn't there. Well, fast forward, all these years later, 50 plus years later, we have the EMS infrastructure there. We have the expertise. It's not a lack of equipment. It's not a lack of resources. It's a lack of resources, but it's human resources at this point. And it comes back to that there's been no good funding model for EMS that's been adopted nationwide, statewide. Unfortunately, right now, the only laws that are really on the books to provide funding to EMS outside of insurance reimbursement lays in the laps of the individual municipalities, which personally, that's an archaic way of looking at it, because EMS has really become a regional resource. It's like EmergiCare alone. Last year we handled 1,800 emergencies outside of our home municipality. In the city of Erie here, and
that's regional for sure.
Yeah, and when we look just in the city of Erie here, we handled around 22,000 emergencies just here in the city alone. And that's just it. This crisis isn't just EmergiCare. This is us as an industry. It's us in Erie County. It's us in this region. We're all suffering from the same issues, and it comes back to people. And it's very difficult to recruit and retain, especially in this employment market, to where you can go anywhere. A young individual coming out of high school today can go work at Five Guys Burgers and start at $18.50 an hour. Well, we start EMTs at $17 an hour. Yeah, because that's what we can afford right now. And
that just doesn't seem right, but it's what you have to do.
Yeah, it's you have to live within your means, and live within your income. And so I guess this circling back to what we do is we're trying to advocate right now. We're trying to educate We're trying to work closely with municipal leadership and to get them to understand, because this essentially has been a free service that's been offered for a very long time.
Right.
And trying to get people to understand why now it's going to cost additional dollars for it to survive. It's a difficult conversation to have, because how do you explain that? And
Right.
you know, and like I said, I can't honestly just point to COVID and be like, oh, you know, this is all the pandemic's fault. No,
Right.
that's ignorance. You know, this has been looming a long time. It's just not come to a head like this for the past 50 years. You know?
I wonder too, when you talk about the EMT Academy, are people even aware of this as a career path? I mean, everybody knows there's ambulances. Everybody knows there's people on them who are highly trained. But do people even? I think it's a good idea, because it's planting that idea in people's minds.
Yeah, so we do a lot of outreach, like with the school districts, and we try to get young individuals, engaged in this, especially looking at, especially in my generation. The big thing coming out with school was we all came out with tons of student loan debt,
yes,
right?
Yes.
That's always a hot topic, student loan debt. And so that, that's one thing that we try to promote, is that you can come out and take on a trade here and make a difference in your community and not have to pay $1 for it. In fact, we'll pay you to do it. We'll pay you to get trained. We'll pay you to join our organization to go out and make a difference in your community. But like I said, it's a difficult sell, because when people hear what we do and see what we do, we work in a very, very difficult environment.
Sure.
Climbing up or going up 3 flights upstairs, carrying all of your bags and all of your gear to set up this emergency room in somebody's home. That's difficult, and it is not for everybody out there. It takes the right person to be willing to and be able to do that. And so finding those individuals is very difficult, especially in a world now to where we sort of got used to working from home, right?
Sure.
A lot of people, the pandemic, where it put people used to attending school, from home, staying home to work, and being able to care for children. Our job is a very hands-on job. There's not a work from home day,
right? No.
In EMS, it's work in somebody else's home, but it's it's a difficult job, and it's difficult to find the right people to do that. And especially when you look at, the inflationary pressures that people have on, the normal household income at this point, they're going to look for jobs that pay a little bit better. And again, when you're struggling and we're competing with a retail market and other jobs like what we are right now, it's very difficult for a young person to come out and say, I'm willing to do this for less money. And, by the way, I'm going to work harder doing it, because it's, it is, we deal with other people's crisis and problems for a living.
Sure.
Who wants to do that nowadays? It's difficult, so, but we try to get out, we try to educate, and try to get into the the high schools, and advertise and market through social media, which we know just has an endless reach there, to try to find individuals, because there are a lot of people out there that are community driven, that their life is mission driven.
That's what I was going to bring up. I mean, you talk about it being a difficult job, and it is, but the other side of that is you're never going to go home and say, I didn't make a difference today. I didn't really help anybody. What am I doing with my life?
Exactly. It is very satisfying. It is a very satisfying job. It's a difficult job, but it's very satisfying, because when you walk away at the end of the day, no matter how long or how rough of a day you had, you came in and you impacted somebody's life. And it doesn't always have to be, the drastic emergency like what people see on television. Sometimes it's just being there for somebody in their time of need, and everybody has. And the one thing I've learned in this line of work is everybody has a different definition of what they believe an emergency is. What's an emergency?
I bet that's true.
I mean, when you see some of what people call 911 for, it's just sometimes they don't know what else to do. But you're there for that person. And sometimes it's not that you're making a life-saving intervention. Sometimes it's just you being there for that person to help guide them through whatever they're going through, help tying them to the care that they need, and getting them to where they need to be. The calls that I reflect back on that are most memorable to me, a lot of them are along those lines. They're not the ones to where I perform some life-saving procedure or something like that. It's the individuals to where, I've taken them from their house to, the nursing home because they're no longer able to care for themselves, and that's a life-changing event to them. And those are a lot of the calls that do stick out in my mind because it's that evolution of life that we deal with, and we see things from all facets in this line of work.
Oh, totally.
And
I'm sure.
But it is very gratifying because you're there for people in their time of need, people in your community. Your battlefield is what you see outside the window, your window in a day, and then when you drive home in the morning, you probably helped your neighbors, you helped your community. You drive past that on your way to church on Sunday or, wherever you're going. That's your workplace is your community where you're working, and it just, that sticks with you.
I'll tell you how you can know that for sure. If you have a friend that's an EMT, that person probably gets almost as many questions, free advice, as a doctor does.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
I have a friend who's an EMT. That's all they get at a party is,
yep.
Okay, now say this happened. Would this be, should I call 911? because they are so knowledgeable.
Yeah, we see a wide range and a wide scope. In fact, we see a lot of people start their healthcare careers in EMS because you get to see so much.
I bet that's true.
We've had a lot of employees that have gone on to nursing school, on to nurse practitioner, physician assistant school. We've even had people become physicians that have worked at emergent care. And it's because they get to come in, they get to see a wide range of emergencies, anything from traumatic emergencies to serious medical emergencies such as heart attacks, strokes, behavioral health emergencies. We certainly see our share of that, and especially with the drug epidemic that we have going on right now, it just people get to feel out medicine in its entirety with EMS and really see what specialty they might like to go in. And that's another thing that we advocate for, too, is if somebody doesn't know where they want to go in healthcare, this is a good entry way of getting to see what's out there because you get such a wide array of situations, you really can find what your passion is. And we look at it that, even if we bring in an individual and we know they're going to leave us in 2 to 3 years, that's still 2 to 3 years that we had, a solid person who's really looking to make a difference. And honestly, we enjoy seeing people move on and make something more of themselves in the healthcare field and being part of that journey with them. So that's another thing is that it's a good place to start if you don't know what you want to do in healthcare. Mm-hmm. You get a taste of everything. And
kind of get your sea legs, too, of I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle stress. I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle emergencies. And people go through your program and they're like, oh, you know what, I can do this.
Yep. Yeah, it's again, it's where people get a lot of their confidence, and especially when you work in EMS, other things that feel like a crisis in life. After you see what we see in a day's time, and what our folks deal with, it really puts things into perspective. And that was what was unique as me as being a teenager going through EMT class. Is when I finished high school, I looked at the world much differently than a lot of my classmates did.
I bet you did.
In a very short time. I seen things that hopefully none of them will see in their lives.
Yes.
And I just wish that if people got to see things through our perspective, the world would be a different place to them because we get to see the real human side of the world. And that's the part of the job that I appreciated working in the field. And I think that a lot of our staff appreciate is they get to see the world for what it really is. They get to see the truth. It's nothing that's, viewed through, just the television, or through social media, or to what somebody wants you to believe. You get to see it firsthand. It's a very personable, hands-on, very, when you're with that patient in their time of need, like you're really getting that feeling of what life's all about.
I think too, at least in my life, when the first time you or someone you love needs that service, like emergent care, your view of what happens in that vehicle and outside the vehicle, maybe if they come into the home, totally changes.
Yes.
I mean, I just have immense respect for it.
Yes, it becomes a totally different world, and that's what in healthcare is unique about I always say that we always play away games. We never get to play a home game, really.
Right.
The patient doesn't come to us to where it's always within our four walls. Mm-hmm. We're always going to them. It's always an away game. And the things that happen there, when you're with that patient, it's I don't know how to describe it. It's something you really just have to experience to be able to appreciate.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Well, let's, in our last kind of 4 minutes here, let's talk about the EMT Academy again, and how to get more information, how to sign up, how to find out everything that's going on with it, because it's a really unique program.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to our website, emergicare.org/employment, you can go on there and find the EMT Academy, the Summer EMT Academy application. Also has the job description on there that you can review. And our phone number's right on the website. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. I would encourage you, even if you want to come in and stop by and see what it's all about, take a tour of the building. We're always up to, showing people our station and our organization.
Sure.
And if you don't live in Erie, like I said, we cover parts of 8 counties. We have stations in Warren, stations in McCain County out in Kane, station in Titusville and Crawford County, and we've just recently expanded into Mercer County and northern Mercer County, actually where I grew up.
Yeah.
So go to our
beautiful
website.
Jamestown, PA.
That's exactly where I grew up, Jamestown, Pennsylvania, Pymatuning State Park.
Yes, indeed, sir.
And so go to our website, check it out. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to our organization. We'd love to talk to you, and encourage anybody who thinks that this is a line of work that they would like to explore. Come in and talk to us, apply, and let's get you in it.
Yeah, and if you're just listening and you're saying, wow, I'd like to support EmergiCare and what they do, of course you can do that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're a 501c3 organization. We're a nonprofit. We are a mission-driven organization. Everything that we do surrounds ensuring that we fulfill our mission to our community. And so that's, you can donate. Also on our website, you can see that we have a number of fundraisers that are coming up. Our biggest fundraiser, Garage Gala, will be coming up here at the beginning of May. It's always a good time, food and drinks. How do you go wrong with that?
How do you go wrong?
But all of our fundraisers are listed online, or if you would just like to donate or sign up for our membership program, feel free. That's all the information's there, and questions, feel free to reach out to us.
Great. David, thank you so much.
Thank you.